Do you think that's what inspired all the, oh, you're an industry plant?
If I was an industry plant, I would have tried to be a musician from 18 years old, because now I'm 27 and I am so exhausted.
One of the bigger songs for you, 18 plus.
18 plus, 18 plus, get those children off your...
Is there a certain band you had in mind when you were writing this?
Like getting to watch certain bands like reach out to my management and completely fold and being like, why did she write this song about us? And then my management getting to say like, well, why do you think it's about you? Are you trying to fess up to something?
The new record, hot singles in your area. You know, I feel like I'm going to get a virus just from listening to this album.
Especially with the song titles, you might actually get a virus, like searching up some of the song titles.
Hey, it's me, Jesse Lee, and thanks for clicking on this episode of The Jesse Lee Show. I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. To all my American friends out there. For all my Canadian friends, I believe wasn't just Canada Day, right? So happy Canada Day. For everyone else and any other country, you know, screw you. You don't get a special day. I'm just kidding. Today is a special day because we got Scene Queen on the show, aka Hannah. She's probably come across your For You page at some point. That's how I discovered her. Even though we are both from Ohio originally, we've actually never been in the same room together, I don't think. But I found her on TikTok years and years ago when I first started making content on TikTok. And, you know, her hilarious skits popped up with paired with some pretty badass music that's kind of like a combination of like pop punk, emo, little trap metal. She's calling it Bimbocore, and she's gone viral a bunch of times and has a high emphasis on taking down the patriarchy. It's fun stuff. Also, she's collabed with a lot of my favorite artists like Set It Off. So that's another way that she's kind of cross-contaminated her way into the scene. And her new album, Hot Singles in Your Area, is out now, and she's currently out on the Summer School Festival with a ton of great bands. It's a tour. It's like kind of like the Warped Tour Festival, but it's like a tour, and it's got a lot of cool bands in it, like Let Down, Stan Atlantic, the Home Team. I know I'm missing some, but if you go look at this lineup, it's insane to think in 10 years from now, you're going to go back and look at this lineup and be like, I can't believe this was a traveling festival that happened, because these are all the top name bands right now. We talk about, a lot of people think Scene Queen is an industry plant, so she kind of dives into those rumors a little bit. She has a really big song called 18 Plus, kind of about the seedy underground culture of emo and pop punk bands from back in the early 2000s. 18 Plus, I think you can kind of decipher what it's about. And we talk about her surprising inspiration from Paris Hilton and other Y2K female celebrities from that era. If you dig this episode, please, wherever you're listening or watching right now, please hit that follow or subscribe button. It honestly takes you no time at all. I think you could probably time it. I bet it takes you less than 4 seconds. And it does so much for me. If each and every one of you listening and watching right now follows the podcast, we'll be the #1 podcast on the charts. You know, I know I'm already #1 in your hearts, but let's get it statistically, baby. Also, wherever you're watching, please snap a screenshot and share it on your social media, channel of choice. Tag me at Jesse Lee on TikTok and Instagram, at Jesse Lee Show on X. And you can tag at Scene Queen Rocks across socials as well. And we'll all share it around together. We'll be internet friends. Won't that be awesome? Sound good? Let's get into it. Awesome. Well, it's so good to have a fellow Ohioan on the show. I'm always excited anytime I get to talk to a local fan.
I know. It's crazy because I feel like in hindsight, we probably must have crossed paths so many times without knowing it.
Had to like a show at like maybe the old May Halls or like the Foundry or something. House of Blues.
For sure.
Yeah, even like when the last time you were in town, when you were in Cleveland, you had so much going on. We didn't even get a chance to connect. It was so crazy, like how much. Like,
I know it's unfortunate because I've wanted to do this like interview for so long, but every time I see you, it's also when my entire family comes to see my show. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's the upside and downside of you being from Ohio, is like you have a lot of other friends and people to talk to while you're here. So I totally get it. It was an awesome show. I loved it though. I had a great time.
Thank you.
Speaking of shows, you just wrapped up Download Festival, right?
Yeah, that was exciting. Honestly, that's the first time I've ever played a show that I walked out there and like for the entirety of the set, I was just laughing with my band, but like we were scared. Like that was the first time that I played a set where I was like, whoa, that's a lot of people. Like we played
Yeah,
2 festival shows before that, but that felt insane and like actually daunting, but it was so fun.
that's amazing. And the crowd was super into it. Like they like knew the songs and stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. The UK is like I go out there so much for a reason. Like the crowds there are just absolutely insane.
Nice. Were you the one that got to like announce like the whole Barclays sponsorship dropping from that?
No. So
Oh, okay.
honestly, so there was the bands like that were all on the hardcore stage, like Zulu and Scowl, etc., that had dropped off. And I think that's what got all the initial press attention and also
Hmm.
what brought it to my attention because obviously like, you know, being from the US, we don't really have like Barclays over here. So I didn't even
Right.
know what that was, like, you know, a UK bank, let alone their ties to different things. But I think the majority, if not all of the bands weren't even aware of like what that company was doing. So I think
Yeah.
when there was a boycott group on social media that I think reached out to a couple bands and was like, hey, this is happening. And then those hardcore bands on that one stage like took the L, which I think they did it for the greater good, I guess, because then it brought the attention to like all these other people on the lineups. And then like as unfortunate as it is to say, like when you are higher up on a bill, it's easier to draw attention to things. And I think a lot of those bands that were on the bill, like, you know, whether that's like even above me, like, you know, was pulling for all of this stuff to get pulled from behind the scenes. And then I'm very thankful that, you know, I work with my agent out there. One of them, she like, you know, called me offhandedly and was like, you know, if anything ever makes you uncomfortable, I will always like take your comfort over a check.
Oh,
So if you
nice.
feel the need to pull, we will do like that in a way that is right for you. If you feel the need to play and make a statement, we will like allow you to do so, whatever. And that just meant so much to me. And then also like I have another agent over there, Paul Ryan, who like he was advocating for me so hard behind the scenes as well. And I know that all the other bands that you know, are making their agents do the same. Like so much work went into it behind the scenes. And I have to say, I'm very thankful for Download because the promoter for Download was so receptive to like the criticism and, you know, did it in a way as quickly and as swiftly as possible. Obviously, when you're like doing something as big as that, like the financial and all of the different implications of that takes a while. And they really did it in such like a clean, well done way. So I'm very
Yeah.
thankful that all of that happened as it did. And I really wish that, like, I said this on stage, but I really wish that I would have gotten to see those bands. And I also wish I was as, like, courageous as the ones that pulled first, like, word to do that because, you know, giving up an opportunity like that, like, especially when you're playing a festival that is supposed to get your foot in the door in, like, a lot of those bands are, like, from the US as well. So, like, a show that's supposed to get your foot in the door and, like, make a name for yourself to pull away from that is like says a lot about their character.
Yeah, it was a huge festival. It was a crazy lineup. A lot of like pretty much like a mega giant warp tour almost. Just like such a like huge like who's who of like rock, metal, and metalcore. So looked like it was a good time. I saw some videos of. I obviously did not make it to the UK, but my editor, who's editing this in the future, he saw the show. He thought you were great. So you got
And
a lot of
honestly, it was a fun show for me because, you know, so much of my shtick, as you like saw in Cleveland, is like crowd interaction and feeding off of
yeah.
like things that they're yelling at me. So when you play a big festival set like that, it sometimes like is a little bit scary and daunting because you can't hear the feedback because you're so
Hmm.
far away from the fans like
Right.
physically. But I was just lucky that like my sense of humor for whatever reason aligns a lot with UK humor because I think
Mm.
they're very like unfiltered. So I could hear the laughs, which is how I knew that it was going well because I'm like, if I can hear it with in ears from like 30 feet away, there's a lot of people laughing. Like,
Yeah. Man, maybe I need to move to the UK. I feel like my humor gets lost on a lot of people.
that's fair. That's fair.
You need to write a song about some bangers and mash or something. Really
Yeah,
pander to the
definitely.
UK crowd. So you've been involved in creating music for quite a while now. How does it feel to like finally be getting ready to drop your debut album?
It is honestly weird because I moved out to LA in 2015. And, you know, when I moved out here, it was around the time that like a lot of stuff was coming out about different bands and like bands were dropping members left and right and blah, blah, blah. And it felt at that time like the scene was not a safe space for me. So I like withdrew from alternative music, and I've been working like as a songwriter and stuff, trying to get my foot in the door, like via pop and hip hop for a while. And then the pandemic hit and I started, doing a rock project again, just because I missed like the sound that I grew up with. But it is so crazy because, going from all of that and then like feeling like I didn't have a place in the scene to now I have so many women like and queer people like come up to me at shows and just being like, you finally make me feel like I belong somewhere in this scene is so crazy. Like, it's just a shift that I never thought my life would take. But the fact that all of that has happened pre people even getting to hear a debut album has been like somewhat driving me insane, because I'm like, I have so much to give, and like I don't feel really worthy of this like sort of affection and attention that I'm getting, because I feel like I haven't actually delivered enough to you yet, because I had only two
imposter syndrome.
EPs. Yeah, a little bit. Or like almost like a sense of guilt, just because like I literally only have, all of my songs are like 2 minutes anyway, and I'd only dropped like 12 2-minute songs. So there was like only maybe on a good day 30 minutes of material actually out on like Spotify and everything before I started dropping this album, or having like this album rollout. So now I finally feel like once this is out, like I actually have a chunk of music out. It's stuff that's like a lot more up to date with my life. I wrote the majority of it like 2 years ago, but the song, the closing song on the album Climax, this like super ballady thing, wraps up the whole album, because like the album is essentially about everything that happened in my life that made it to where I felt the need to become a scene queen, essentially. So whether that be like stuff I experienced in the scene, awkward things with dating, and like feeling the desire to make fun of myself, and then like coming into my sexuality and being queer, and like that also feeling like I needed to have a voice somewhere in that, and like being a woman and everything. So like all of that is in there. And then the last song is like a love song to my significant other, but also to my like fans as well, just in the sense that it's like, I hope we never lose this bond that we have, because as much as I created this project to like be strong for myself, now having people that are like so dependent on me to like advocate for them, but also like having people that I can depend on for like when I need to feel reassured, just like means the world to me that we've created that space. So I don't know, I'm so excited for people to finally hear it, because it feels like a little present in a way to my fans, which is cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially for like the diehards that have been with you since the first single, it's a way to finally like give them like the full package. Like I like it. It really sounds like you're setting up the scene queen origin story almost in this album. Like it's giving you the start to finish catalog.
Yeah, I think this definitely is like a scene queen origin story, and then it ends on a place that's a little more like vulnerable, of like, this is a little bit of Hannah, like when the lights go out at the end of the day, like this is how I feel personally about like everything that's happening in this story that sometimes feels like it's being told for you as an artist. So it's cool because it opens a doorway almost now for like, if I want to explore more stuff on like the more sentimental side or whatever, like I'm able to do that now. But also, I love delivering things via the lens of humor. So we'll see where that actually takes me. But yeah.
I think that's great, because obviously you're not running around 24/7 like talking about cutting dicks off and stuff. Like you're a multi-dimensional person. So it's like anyone else, you have other interests, and you have like, emotions other than like wanting to like slash some tires or whatever, So it's like it's cool to have like
it's so funny because I feel like people in when they meet me, like outside of the Scene Queen project, like just at parties or like via friends or stuff, they're like, they almost think I'm mad at them because I'm like not so like in your face like they expected me to be, and that I'm reserved. So they take that as like me like not wanting to talk to them. But I'm like, I still want to talk to you the exact same. It's just I spend my entire life being this like over the top personality that like when I'm Hannah during the day, like you have to be a little more withdrawn. Like I can't think about like, rainbow sparkles, rhinestones, like the patriarchy all day, every day. That is exhausting. Like, I do have hobbies.
Yeah.
The pink stays consistent. They
Right.
do, like, people get surprised by that, actually, which I think is funny, that they'll, like, see me and I'll have all my luggage and it's pink, and they're like, oh, you really are, like, that into pink. And I'm
No,
like,
this isn't a gimmick.
this is, I spend so much time being pink, now, like,
Yeah.
because I tour so much, that if it was a gimmick, it would be a really exhausting gimmick, because everything someone gifts me immediately is pink.
Yeah, it does seem like Scene Queen is just kind of Hannah turned to 11 almost.
Definitely, yeah.
Do you think so? Having the back or previous, I guess, career in writing music and producing for other artists, do you think that's what inspired all the comments like, "Oh, you're an industry plant"?
I honestly think that anytime that a woman is like successful very fast, the term industry plant gets like thrown around. And I think it's hard for people to conceptualize that if like they don't know who a person is, that like person just didn't exist at that moment. But like
Fair,
obviously people are multifaceted and they have like long ways of getting to where they are in different routes. I also think that so I said once that when I was in college, I had applied for an internship at Hopeless Records like 4 times, and I got turned down every single time. But I ended up meeting with the CFO of Hopeless, which, if you know anything about how record labels work, that person has nothing to do creatively with anything that happens, nothing to do that with signing any of that. They have to do with, if you sign them, how much money are they getting? Who cuts the check? How is the person signing them getting paid, et cetera, et cetera. And so like the fact that I was talking to that person, I was talking to them about how I wanted to go into possibly like accounting for a label. And that was, again, 6 years almost before I became Scene Queen. Yeah. So people were like, she has these industry connections and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, man, if I was an industry plant, I would have tried to be a musician from 18 years old, because now I'm 27 and I am so exhausted that I'm, launching your career in your like late 20s. Your body is not built the same for like grinding out these tours. No. My boyfriend's been touring since he was 17 years old. And I'm like, he had the sleeping on hotel floors tours at like 17 when your body is built for that. But if I were to do those tours now, I would literally like crumble physically.
Right.
But I also just think that comment about the like industry connections is funny, because like people, I think, underestimate the fact that it is a music business. So in any industry, for you to have any sort of success, you have to network like an insane person, which for me, that was the only reason I moved out to LA, is because like living in Cleveland, I just didn't know like producers. They do exist in Cleveland, obviously, but like they're a lot harder to find if you're not already working with them. Like you have to actively seek them out on Instagram and stuff, versus like moving into LA. They were everywhere. And I like built all those connections like musically. And then also like, if you're going to get signed to a record label, there's a lot of things that have to happen. So you have to have like the contract has to be like run by a lawyer to make sure that you're not getting like effed over in the music industry and like that sort of thing. So you have to like know a music industry lawyer. You have to also know like a good manager that can connect you to all these people. And you have to know, obviously, like your manager themselves has to know a record label. And they're not going to just like talk to any single person that a management company like pushes to them, because like management companies do that for all of their artists. They're obviously like weeding them down based on like, okay, well, do our other artists know them? Do they have like momentum going in their artist project? Yada, 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 yada. So that does take like about 10 years to build that, unless you go like insanely viral on the internet, which me going viral did ultimately get my foot in the door, but like I did not go viral enough for any of that to have happened without like building connections. If I had gone the level of viral that I went and knew no one in the industry, I would still be an independent artist, like for sure.
You wouldn't even be able to like cross that extra bridge for sure. And I think the thing is too, like, I feel like it's just like a buzzword. Like kids use the word industry plant and don't even know what it means. They use it like just haphazardly, and like if anyone even like is signed to a record label that is not like famous already, they're like, oh, well, they're an industry plant because they're on a label. It's like, well, that's not what that means, man. Like, that doesn't.
But it's also just like such a disservice to like, I put out a lot of terrible music under a different name back in the day, like under, Hannah, whatever extension. Like I did 5 different versions of that, but, I have a very common name. So it ended up getting buried under a billion people. But like, you have to put out like a billion songs and ultimately take them off the internet and like have 5 different image change before you find something that actually works. So like, yes, this is the first songs that came out as Scene Queen, and they seem too polished, but it's also like you had to spend a lot of time polishing those things. No one just like comes out with music like for the first time and is automatically good at it,
Right.
And whether or not you like the sound is like unrelated, but in a way, you saying I'm an industry plant does mean that you think the music is good enough that a label could touch it. So that's probably good.
And like you said, if you were an industry plant, you'd be a really shitty one because it took you 27 years and multiple projects to get there. So like, it doesn't quite add up. So back to the new record, hot singles in your area. First of all, I love the whole aesthetics, the whole 2000s vibe of it. I love the pop-up window. I feel like I'm going to get a virus just from listening to this album, just the way you set up the aesthetics for it. It's really cool. I really appreciate the attention to detail you put into it.
Especially with the song titles, you might actually get a virus, like searching up some of the song titles, but
yeah.
I love the Y2K stuff, and I felt like it was important to highlight in this album just because, so with the whole Bimbocore thing, like a lot of the modern, takes on the bimbo aesthetic and all of that stuff came from like in the early 2000s, hyper-femininity was like vilified. But you still had girls that were using it to their advantage anyway, which is why I allude so much to like Britney Spears and Paris Hilton and like all these pop icons, because like in spite of people making fun of them for being like dumb on the internet, like Jessica Simpson as well, they were capitalizing on it. Like they were, playing chess when we were playing checkers. Like they knew what they were doing. If you've watched Paris Hilton's documentary, it's actually like, she's so insanely brilliant. Like even the way she talks is different than how she's perceived. And that like even goes pre the Y2K, like with Dolly Parton and people like that. Like there's always been women that are using it. It just takes people longer to figure it out. So I wanted to like highlight that era because that's where the like, feminist twist on the bimbo thing came from. But also that was just a time in my life, like, growing up in that era and like it not being accepted to be queer and like all of these different things. It's fun to like pay homage to that now and be like able to be fully myself. And also this whole album is kind of about like, you have your like coming of age story in your early life, but then in your 20s, you have this weird like second coming of age that no one talks about. Like they love to talk about like how awkward it is to be a teenager. But like moving through your 20s, there's just so many like strange and uncomfortable scenarios where like every year you feel like you become a different person and somehow every year you no longer know how to navigate situations. So that's why there's songs on the album. Like there's a song Oral Fixation on the album that is just like about literally like when I started dating women and then like started going back into the dating world just in general, I got like this word vomit where I had no game anymore. But I was like, I've spent the last 10 years of my life trying to be sure of myself and feeling like I'm independent. And now you put me in the dating world and I literally can't like hang on. So I don't know. It pays homage to a lot of different things, but the Y2K aesthetic too, I just like, it's so cute and I love it anyway. So I had to use it.
Yeah, the 20s are weird because like you're technically an adult, but you're still usually broke as shit. And you're still kind of stupid in your 20s, And then, like you said, dating. It's like, I remember like trying to date girls and like getting mad. Like, why don't girls like want to date me? And it's like, well, you're 22 and you work at Applebee's and you live in your mom's house. Like, maybe get some shit together, boy. I don't know. You're in a band trying to make it and it didn't work. Like, yeah, okay. I see now. I didn't really know what I was doing back then. Like, yeah, it is funny. It's hard to navigate that point in your life when you are in it, and then because looking back you're like, oh yeah, no shit, obviously things weren't going right.
And that's the thing too, is like with me delivering all of this stuff with a sense of humor, like I feel like the grand overall like theme of this album is like, so obviously it starts with some pretty like heavy traumatic stuff that happened like to me in my life and then also like in the scene and different things, and then like transitions through like other things that were also terrible and funny and like at the time not funny or whatever. At the end of the day, anything can and will happen to you, a lot of the time it's gonna be bad stuff. And if you like always have this mindset of it like being a negative, that like it's gonna like let you crumble. But if you take life at this like sort of lens of there's no way I can control it, I might as well laugh at it, I might as well make fun of myself, like that is your greatest superpower at the end of the day, which is like the whole thing with Bimbocore is like making fun of myself or whatever. Like it ended up being my superpower, which is why I also try and like make a huge portion of my set on stage just me like yapping and making jokes, because like that truly is the point of this project, is like kind of making yourself like, you know, making fun of yourself, but also like, I don't know, reclaiming your power within it, because now kind of nothing truly bothers me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to control the controllable, right? You can't
Exactly,
let the
yeah.
other ones weigh you down. Are there any collabs on the album other than the one that we already know about from the
So we
with Barely
have
Human?
the one with Barely Human. We have a song with Wargasm coming out as well.
Oh, cool.
And then I have the song POV coming out with Jordan, the Ready set.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
finally
good
got to
throwback.
do like a OG Scenery song too, so I'm stoked about that collab.
Oh, man, yeah, the radio set's so good. I love it.
Yeah, I was a super big like, I mean, again, I'm a pop and rock girly, and like Jordan was the intersection of both in the Warped
Yeah.
Tour era.
Nice. Yeah, one of the bigger songs on the album. Well, actually, I guess one of the bigger songs for you on a social media landscape, but also just a straight up banger, is the song 18 Plus. That kind of like tackles the very seedy area of bands going after underage girls. Is there a certain band you had in mind when you were writing this, or was it just so common that it's too hard to pinpoint,
So
unfortunately?
that was the thing, is like I could have called out very, very specific bands like throughout it, but I did leave. So there's that breakdown that says like the allegations against like bleep bleep bleep. And I put that in there intentionally because I knew that there were a lot of bands that either fit that like word wise or syllable wise.
Mhm.
And like having people argue about which band it's about or who it could be, and it's even if it's not this one, it should be this one, and blah 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 blah. I kind of did that intentionally because I just like, if there's enough people that we can have an argument about it, this is clearly like a scene wide
That's a
problem
problem.
that we should be addressing, and why haven't we addressed this at a like higher level, you know? So in a way though, it was kind of like my evil mastermind plan of like getting to watch certain bands like reach out to my management and completely fold and being like, why did she write this song about us? And then my management getting to say like, well, why do you think it's about you? Are you trying to fess up to something? Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? Like, clearly she didn't name anyone. Like, that was the whole joy of all of it.
Yeah, I really do love that. Like, because yeah, like you said, if anyone reaches out, it's like why would you write this song about me? It's like, well, how do you know it's about you? What you got to say?
Yeah,
That's good.
exactly. It is brilliant in that way.
Oh man, another song on the album is MILF, which obviously, Falling in Reverse and Jelly Roll have one of the biggest songs out right now, which is like a kind of a rap metal country hoedown. But you were kind of on that vibe already with that MILF song. Like, are you gonna trek into that territory anymore on the album?
So to be honest, that song just kind of came from like, I've been asked a million times before, is there any genre that you don't think could be Bimbocore? And I was like, no, I think any genre I could make into sound like a Scene Queen song. And at the time, I was writing with, or like I was hanging out in Nashville for an entire summer, and I was around all of like my friends that were writing in the country space. And I realized while I was out there, I like had this perception of like Tennessee and Nashville always in my brain, but I realized there's like a huge portion of Nashville that is like extremely liberal. They just live in specifically Nashville and not other parts of Tennessee, but they all like still work within country. And there's a huge pocket of people in the world that like grew up listening to country music, love the sound of it, but then kind of shied away from that part of the industry just because the like, politics and all of it like didn't align with their current views. Like they grew up and like had a different view of the world. And like, because country music tends to be more conservative, I was like, if I'm going to use that genre, I have to do something that's like country, but also in a way anti-country. And that way is having the most vulgar, explicit lyrics ever. because I know for a fact that would never go on country radio, but it still like melodically is a very yeehaw song.
yeah.
And then I wanted to have that little like beat down guitar section anyway. Like my producer Zach Jones and then our friend KJ Strock also were producing on it, and they just like wanted to shred on guitar that day. So I was like, send it, let's see what happens. And it ended up being one of the coolest like and most fun tracks to play live for sure, because weirdly in the UK and in Europe, they like really love the country song. And I think it's just because they don't have that exposure to it. So when you give like people the opportunity to wear a pink cowgirl hat, like they're fully on board. So
yeah, and the excellent square dancing moves you got in the video too, that definitely I think oversells it as well.
that's the one thing I will say is like the trend is happening, but I will die on the hill that at least I did the choreo in my video. Like I will give myself credit. I showed up that morning with a bunch of professional dancers and they're like, pick this up. And I picked it up in like 2 minutes and then we shot the video and it looks sick. So
yeah, I love how genres are just like so meaningless anymore. Like there's the lines are so blurry. Like you can have a song like that has all those elements to it, and you can go play like Download Festival and then probably turn around and play like Bonnaroo or something like that. It would still all fit. Like you would still kind of be able to move like fluidly through all the different festivals and circuits and whatnot. So it's really cool.
I think that's like honestly where all music is kind of starting to shift. And I think we're going to see that a lot now too. Like so much of the top 40 is pop stars that are going to start making like country music because country is having a moment now. But also like we're getting the rap country stuff, like with Shabuzi and stuff like that on top 40. Like I think in general, we're going to see a lot more genres blend. And I think that's cool in the terms of a festival, because I think like typically as of right now, festivals are like very enclosed to like certain types of listeners showing up at them. So they're like, oh, all of our listeners listen to rock, so we're only going to book like straight up rock bands, you know? But I think like all it takes is a few key artists to get put on a lineup that like may surprise people, and then like watching how those artists do. Like for Download, a great example of that is they put Busted on the lineup, and I guess like Download, I was not aware, I thought it was just a rock festival, but like is historically very much just a straight up metal fest. So like people, they were saying 20 years ago, if Busted got announced for that lineup, they would have had like a full on meltdown and being like, why are they invited?
Oh, right.
So they were in like a tent stage, and the tent was like so overflowing that they had to turn people away. But it's because everyone grew up with Busted and like actually really likes them. So like I think we need to book more bands like that, because I think it like could take music in a very cool direction, like to where people are on bookings that you may not normally expect them to be on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the festivals are, taking notice of the change in the way people listen to music and consume it. And like, obviously playlists and streaming was a big factor in that. But yeah, it does seem like festivals are doing the same thing and following suit. It's like, well, we're going to have all the coolest, biggest artists on here, regardless of what genre they fit into, because they're going to have a couple songs, no matter what, that's at least thousands of people on this side are going to like, and then the other band's going to have 1,000 people over there, so it's not going to matter. It's going to be a nice little combo.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like in a weird way, I mean, you specifically were on top of this as well, but just like people that were very aware of the internet and like trends on that, I think are kind of the people to look to in terms of like what's going to be cool next in music, because they are getting sent like so much music all at one time. Like I feel like, with your show and stuff, like, and like your page on the internet, you always show so many different like subgenres that people like, from face value, you would assume that all of your stuff is rock, but like really all of this stuff is slipping into alternative space, like whether it wants to be or not, which I think is cool and I'm excited about. But I'm like a listen to every genre, write every genre sort of person.
Yeah, and as you know, Hannah, I only had the very best guests on this show, so you are among the elite. I only talk to the very coolest of people.
I appreciate that.
I love subgenres. Like I think it's natural human instinct to want to like compartmentalize and like put things into boxes and like this fits here, this fits here. People get so bent out of shape. Like I started calling when Travis Barker was producing every single band that was out in 2020 to 2021. I started calling all the kind of that genre, the MGK genre, like new punk. And I never got credit for it. I feel like I definitely coined it first, but I never got like royalties or anything like that. But I let it be known I did coin it first. But I remember, I called it new punk, and people were like, oh, why do we have to give everything a name? I'm like, because it's fun. Why not? Same thing with Baddiecore, and the whole Baddiecore thing started happening with like Bad Omens and stuff. People were like, that's such a stupid thing. We don't need to give everything a genre tag. It's like, but you can, and it's fun. Like, why worry about it?
It's so funny though, because I named my thing Bimbocore because I was like, well, I can't think of an actual genre that fits in. And then people are like, it's so weird to name like your genre. And then I'm like, okay, then it's metal. And they're like, whoa,
right.
Pick a different genre.
Well,
and I'm
metal.
like, yeah, exactly.
Pick a different genre.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, speaking of festivals that we're going to look back on and think like differently of, I think in 10 years from now, we're going to look back at this summer school festival lineup, and we're going to be like, how are all these bands on one bill? For everyone listening, Scene Queens going out on this awesome festival. We got Magnolia Park on there, Stan Atlantic, the Home Team. I know there's a couple other I'm missing on there. Oh, Letdown.
Yeah, and Honey Revenge.
Honey Revenge. Can't forget Honey Revenge. Yeah. Devin. Yeah, she's dope.
I'm gonna shake and scream into the sky that also the tickets are $30 for all of these bands, which is insane. They've done an amazing job on this festival that they like only pulled in sponsors that would add things to not only like the tour but also the like charity aspect and like different things that we're raising money for throughout the tour. But like one of the sponsors, like their direct money went towards lowering the ticket price. And I'd have to ask exactly which sponsor did that for us. But the fact that it is an affordable festival is so like exciting and cool.
Yeah.
Because I also think like there is that whole aspect of you go for music discovery. There's like 4 people that are doing headline sets, which that set time changes, and you have to go at the beginning if you want to see like your favorite band play a headline set because you won't know what time of day it is.
Classic
but I also
Warped Tour.
Yeah, like Warped Tour. People have been begging for years for something like Warped Tour, and now it's finally happening. And I don't think people have processed that like so much of it is based around that mentality. But it's also just like, it's such a special tour for I think all of us on it, because genuinely all of those bands on that tour wanted to tour together in some capacity. Like I can't tell you how many like of those bands either sent me a tour offer or if I've sent them a tour offer. Like, but it's just never aligned because we're like, we play the same size room in this city, or, like you're already on tour with this band and blah, 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 blah. So it just ended up working out so perfectly that we all like got connected on this one tour. And also just, the fact that there's so many women on it, so many queer people, so many people of color, like it is truly just such a refreshing thing to be a part of. And I'm so excited for people to get experience it for the first time. But also like, again, all of these people I've known and like loved for so long. So it's just going to be like such a fun summer for all of us. And I hope that everyone that goes gets that energy because like, yeah, I truly like, it's one of the most excited I've ever been for a tour. Like it's going to be so fun.
It really does feel like the new age, new generation, like of Warped Tour, like because it is all these bands that like are on the rise, like I said, like 10 years from now, people are gonna look back at this graphic like, what? Like all these bands were on one bill. The one band I cannot believe is not on this bill. I'm sure it's some kind of scheduling conflict was not having a Loveless on it because I feel like that would have really completed. I actually just talked to those guys yesterday. They're gonna be on the show coming up soon too. But and also Loveless does the theme song for the Jesse Lee show. But I just feel like they would fit perfectly in there, but still a banger of a tour regardless.
I think like honestly, yeah, it is funny in a way. All of those bands and like Loveless included, we all fall on this genre of like chronically online fan-based music.
Yeah.
But like we're that way too. And like that kind of is how we've all launched our careers, is just like memeing our way into like musical success.
I'm with you.
So honestly, like when I say that it's going to be a fun tour, like you have 6 of the most unserious artists in the entire world on a tour together. So the chaos that's going to ensue, like, I don't know, it's a match made in heaven or a match made in a very terrible place. We'll find out.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the music critic counterpart to all these bands. Like we all came up at the same time on TikTok.
Exactly,
We all
yeah.
none of us take shit too seriously. It's all about fun and telling dick jokes and just having a good time, you know. So
It is funny, like even the most serious, like lyrically, I'd say one of the most serious bands on the like tour is the home team, but their whole aesthetic is like pretending to be like look like Disney adults, you know, like they're wearing
yeah,
fedoras in all of their like press photos just because they can. And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
if that's the base level of like lyrically most serious band that we're about to take out, like it's gonna
yeah.
be a wild, wild summer.
The tour is kicking off in Cleveland, right?
Yep.
Oh
So
man,
we'll
it's gonna
have
be
to
so.
see you, and we'll probably have time because you know I'm
Yeah,
spending. I told my family I'm spending 3 days before the tour starts because I'm like I don't want to do this to where like day one
yeah,
of tour I have to like freak out about entertaining you guys. Not that they like stress me out, but it's just like when your family comes to see you on tour, like you feel guilty about it. You're like, sorry that I'm only here for one day. Like let's catch up for 5 months of time that we haven't had together.
yeah.
So I'm going a little bit early. So ideally, we will all talk to you when we're, or if you're at that show in Cleveland, we will all talk.
Yeah,
Get
if
the
you guys
mass
need
of us
a
in an interview together.
there you go, huge interview. Also, if you guys need like an official host for the event for that day, I can make myself available. I can come out and introduce everybody. But yeah,
Honestly, yeah,
I would definitely be
introduce
there.
us like WWE fighters. Like
Yes,
have walkout music for us. That'd be sick.
100%. I am 1,000,000% on board with that. Absolutely.
Okay, sounds like
and
a
then
plan.
and then right after that, you guys are going to be heading out with Baby Metal, right? I mean, that's not until
Yes.
November, I think, but
Yeah, that's in November. I'm so stoked on that, honestly. Like,
that's
it's
huge.
musically, like, I don't think there's a more perfect fit for what I'm doing, or at least
Hmm.
like genre meshing wise. But honestly, like, you know, like I said, I'm so into like 2000s pop stars. And a lot of that is just because like the costuming of it all, like the dance performance aspect, like just the whole theatricalness of it all. And then I'm really into the like experimental metal music, and Baby Metal has like perfectly crafted the blend of the two. Like they're just
Hmm.
so insanely professional and well rehearsed, and I'm so honored and excited to get to watch their set every single night. Like I'm so unbelievably stoked to go on that tour.
Yeah, that's gonna be so killer. It'd be cool if you guys could do a collab one day too. I feel like that would be like that one they did
A
with Electric
dream.
Callboy is so good. I could definitely see you guys putting something together like that.
I would
So,
love.
oh yeah, someone else would be awesome to see you collab with would be Poppy. I think that'd be cool. I don't know if you're a fan of her or not, but I
Oh,
think
I'm a
that'd be
huge fan.
yeah. Not
I
not to just not to just group all the girls together, but I think you guys would be good together.
No, but we are very, very experimental in our sound.
Mhm.
So it like honestly, that comparison, like that has never not made sense to me. I get a million comparisons where they're like, this isn't the same as Courtney LaPlante. I'm like, well, yeah, but in what world am I trying to sound like Spirit Box? Like you're literally like comparing
Yeah,
like a rectangle to a pentagon. Like
yeah,
we literally are just both shapes. Like, you know, it's not, and not that to
yeah.
say that I don't love that style of music. I think she's like, honestly, during the pandemic, I think she dropped like one of the greatest metal records of all time. Like I Will Die on That Hill.
Mhm.
And like, I think, yeah, lumping all the girls together like sometimes makes sense because genuinely, like I am influenced by so many women. So I never like really take it like as that much of a criticism. But then there's a million
Right,
ones where I'm like, are you listening to the same things that
right,
I'm listening to? Because where are you getting that? Like, it's like
right. It's just
also
because we
I
both
still
have
get
girl
called,
parts. Like,
yeah, like Paramore and stuff. I'm like, in what world is
yeah,
Paramore rapping about like
right.
genitals?
Yeah, I would say I feel like over the last few years, with like especially with there being so many female artists that have like taken to the highest like charts and like becoming more mainstream. I feel like the comparisons of every female singer in a rock band being called Hayley Williams or Paramore, I feel like that's kind of gone away a little bit. Maybe you see it differently on your side of things, but it seems like people have stopped doing that as much. Luckily,
I think like people have stopped doing it as much, but I think it's like one of those things where like she's been like the top of the top for so long that if you like ask someone what their favorite female artist is, she's always going to be in the like narrative. But it's also like when they're like, what should we do like to include more more women? And they're like, well, in this instance, Hayley Williams. I'm like, well, no, if we're talking about inclusivity, we need to like talk about women that haven't made it to the top yet. And I think like people's default has become like Paramore, and that's no fault to her own. That's just like, you know, misogyny doing that. But like, I don't know. I think it's gone away a little bit, but I still know like Devin from Honey Revenge every single day gets a comment like that. Like it just, I guess, depends now more what subgenre you are in, how much people care about that. But if you're like pop rock, I feel like that's still a strong comparison.
Yeah, I guess if you're making pop punk music and you're a female singer, you're probably still getting that comparison.
Yeah.
Like you got to throw trap beats in there or something if you want to get away from that. That sucks too, because like you said, she's been such a dominant force for like 20 years now, and like you said, like using her as almost a scapegoat. Like, well, there's enough women on this bill. We got Paramore. It's like, well, that's one.
Yeah,
and it's Paramore. You know, like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, Hannah, it's been so good talking to you. I know you got to run. I know you got a million other things to do today. New album, Hot Singles in Your Area, is dropping on June 28th. It's going to be available everywhere. And actually, I'm pretty sure this podcast episode will be out after the album's out. The album is, if you're listening right now, the album is probably out streaming everywhere. So go stream it, buy it, just consume it in any way you can. Did you have any more last minute plugs? Yeah.
Last minute plugs. I don't know. Just come see me out on tour, check out the record, and check out all my friends that I'm on tour with. I only tour with people that I adore their music, so that's worth checking out as well. So look at my tour dates.
Absolutely. And everyone can find you at Scene Queen Rocks across the socials, right?
Yep, everywhere.
Very cool. And you can find me at Jesse Lee on TikTok and Instagram, at Jesse Lee Show on X. You can send all your love notes and D-pics there. And above all else, make sure to please share this episode with someone that doesn't suck. All right? Take it easy now, and bye-bye.